What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Critical Overlord here. So in this video we're going to be discussing the potential chance of some ideas that we're just going to discuss some ideas that Rose McGowan threw around last month in regards to her character possibly returning somehow in the upcoming screen in an upcoming screen project, or any screen project, how her character Tatum Riley could just return in general. We're also going to be discussing the chances of us having our OG voice of Ghostface back, Roger L. Jackson, and just get into some reasons as to why what Rose McGowan was talking about, just personally to me, would not make any sense, would not be anything I would be up for. There are some things that would factor into it that do support it. I just wouldn't be a big fan of it. For those of you who stay up to date on anything regarding Scream and keeping up with the cast, you know Rose McGowan played the best friend of Sidney Prescott. A lot of us would argue that Tatum Riley, which was the name of the character, Dewey's sister, Tatum Riley was like the closest thing Sidney had to a best friend outside of Dewey. In this series, I believe her two best friends, outside of Hallie, of course, from Scream 2, I feel like the two who rode for Sidney the hardest are Tatum and Dewey. Those are my personal opinions on who has been on the character of Sidney's side the hardest. I feel like it's been Tatum and Dewey. Rose McGowan shared an idea actually that she had in regards to her character possibly being resurrected, not the character itself. She threw around the idea of Tatum having a twin. Now, what I will say is I can see where maybe she's coming from the same place I'm getting at. If you actually go back and you look at the original film, Tatum does have twin beds in her room. After Sidney punches Gale Weathers in the face during that altercation in the back alley of the police station, they go back to Tatum's house, and we know Ghostface taunts Sidney some more there. But while we're shown Tatum's room, Tatum does have a set of twin beds. So maybe she's getting that idea from that. Now, what I will say about that is that doesn't mean anything. And the reason I personally can say that is because I actually grew up in a room full of twin beds. And I assure you, I do not have a twin by any means whatsoever. That bed set was specifically just something I actually still don't even know why I had twin beds. I just happen to have twin beds in my room. But I'm assuming Rose McGowan, that's where she got this idea from, the fact that if you go back and you look at the film, Tatum does have twin beds in her room. Now, I'm just gonna get into what she had to say about the whole idea of her character possibly being resurrected. She thinks that it would be an interesting idea if they brought her back and Tatum had a twin that came back and was just looking for revenge. Basically, she was like held to the, in her words, as McGowan put it, she would be like held to the no, and the character would have dark hair, and she would just be looking to revenge Tatum. My thing is, after so many years, and I feel like the only time this would have actually been something we could have lived with is in the original film. If not the original film, possibly even the second film, more so the original film. Us finding out that Tatum had a twin, but not necessarily having a twin who's gonna be a Ghostface killer. Just, it'd be nice to find out, okay, yeah, she had a twin, which would explain the twin bed she has in her room. But the idea of bringing Rose McGowan back to reprise that role, and it's not Tatum, it's now Tatum's twin who's looking to get revenge, I'm not on board for that. Not this late in the game. And I feel like at this point it's like Dewey could have mentioned something about it. Dewey definitely could have mentioned something about it. But basically the twin was locked away in a psych ward anyway. In McGowan's head, this is a crazy twin. She's been institutionalized and she got out, and she's just looking for revenge. She's basically the shame of the family, because the family, as we will come to find out in whatever world or film she is thinking of, McGowan is picturing us having find out that the Rileys were a perfect family and that her twin was the outcast, so she had to be locked away. But at the same time, Rose McGowan herself isn't even up for acting anymore, so I don't think we know that Spyglass Media and Radio Silence are looking at bringing back some other legacy cast members. Rose McGowan herself isn't up for acting anymore. She said that not too long ago in this same interview she did. This was a few months ago. This interview she had, not even a few, last month, she had an interview where she sat down with IndieWire, where she basically said she's done acting. She doesn't want to act anymore. But she did toss around that idea of Tatum possibly having a twin. The biggest issue I have with that, again, is it's been far too long for us to feel like we need to find out something like that at this stage in the game. Another issue I have with that is Dewey not mentioning anything about that. Same thing how some of you guys have an issue with Stu showing up alive, but yet Gale Weathers never found out about this. And then on top of that, at some point someone would have brought up Stu. I just find it hard to believe that if Stu is revealed as a killer in the Scream film, how that's the biggest issue with that. How is it that nobody mentioned him before if he actually survived that whole ordeal at the end of the first movie? Same thing with Tatum having a twin. How is it that Dewey didn't mention? I can understand if she's like a disgrace to the family, but that also begs the question then, of course, how long have Tatum and Sidney actually been friends? Because if she didn't know about the twin, that would suggest that Tatum and Sidney, I don't think it's ever really specified how long Tatum and Sidney have been friends in the original film. But assuming if Sidney finds out Tatum had a twin and this twin is now Ghostface, that would mean that they weren't friends for quite that long. Maybe they've possibly only been friends since the start of high school, and this twin's been locked away for quite some time. Another thing that I wanted to toss around was how I was going to go into the idea of it possibly being a fraternal twin, but Rose McGowan is basically stating that she would come back to reprise a role as Tatum, but it's not Tatum, it's Tatum's twin. So we don't have that option. It's going to be an identical twin. I'm not even up for that. I'm not up for that whatsoever. Rose McGowan, I think her character should have had a... Honestly, the character of Tatum, I don't think Tatum should have died, honestly. Out of the two in the original film, if we had to pick one who we'd rather have now, I'd rather have us with a set of three strong leads in females, with us having Sidney Prescott, Tatum Riley, and Gale Weathers. Dewey could have, out of the siblings of the Rileys, I feel like Dewey could have been gone. Tatum, and still to this day, that's just something that's always bothered me. Tatum was such a good friend to Sidney. It always kind of is bothersome to me that she died in the first film, because I feel like what would all the films be like if Tatum had survived at the end of the first movie? And instead of us having Dewey and Sidney, we have Tatum and Sidney and their relationship just growing and building across the series. And instead of it being Dewey, Sidney, and Gale, it's Tatum, Sidney, and Gale. I don't know how exactly that would all played out, of course, given that I know that Courteney Cox's character in the film, Gale Weathers, isn't a lesbian, so of course we're not going to see Tatum hooking up with Gale Weathers. But I feel like that would have been an interesting dynamic and a nice switch, and I feel like it would have been more fitting to have the series. And I know a lot of people are going to be in the comment section disagreeing because it's been so long, and we all are used to the characters of Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. But in my honest opinion, I feel like we could have dropped Dewey in the first film and kept Tatum instead of the other way around. Tatum could have been the one who we've been following with Sidney and Gale for Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, and now the upcoming Scream 5, whenever that is set to release. The whole idea of her having a twin, it's not really something that I could get behind, just because of the sake of the fact that, again, it's been too long since the original film, and then for us to find out something like this far deep into the franchise, I feel like it's a little bit unnecessary. A lot of other people have been talking about the character of Randy possibly being alive somehow. He faked his death. None of that stuff is anything that would be of interest to me. The only thing that I really could realistically see happening is Stu somehow being alive, but of course, even then, that in itself wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. We've already discussed this in the comment section in a variety of different ways. But moving on to another topic, as I mentioned, I want to talk about Roger L. Jackson possibly returning as Ghostface. I'm hoping he does. I seriously hope that they get him back, because he did the MTV Scream 3 season. He was the voice of Ghostface in the third season of MTV's Scream series, which then actually not even MTV's. The third season was VH1's, if I'm not mistaken. Roger L. Jackson did return for the the voicing department to be the voice of Ghostface in the season 3 of Scream for the TV series. So I don't see why he wouldn't be back on board for a full feature film. After he's been a part of all of them, he's been the voice of Ghostface in all 4 films, and I hope he gets to come back to do it again. And of course, I would also like to see some branching out here. I don't just want us to see Ghostface taunting them by the phone, because things have changed quite then. We have live Skype chats now. We have all these different things, all these cool different ways I believe Ghostface could talk to them. Snapchat, all these social media things, live streams on several platforms. I hope Scream 5 uses Ghostface in several inventive ways. He can still, of course, have that voice changer. How they go about implementing that, I don't know. Maybe we'll even get to see that Ghostface app brought back, as I believe at the time when in the 4th film there's a Ghostface app, and I believe at the time we actually had our own version of that app available on app stores, and then that kind of just vanished. So hopefully I hope they can use that as like a marketing strategy for the 5th film. I hope Roger L. Jackson is able to come back and reprise his role as Ghostface in the voice of Ghostface, because the voice is, him playing that voice is just something we're all very used to. It's very iconic, it's very familiar, it's very menacing, it's very threatening. And I feel like if we're gonna have something that's gonna revitalize the franchise, or something that's going to be coming back to kind of finish off where Scream 4 started, because Scream 4, the whole idea there again was to start a new trilogy. We need to at least have that iconic voice of Roger L. Jackson, and that menacing voice. And if it's not him, of course, somebody very similar. But I feel like he's the only one that we would be interested in hearing at this point in the game. Roger L. Jackson being back as the voice of Ghostface is everything that I would want. I'm not really interested in Rose McGowan coming back as Tatum's twin. I'm not interested in Dewey having any more siblings. We don't need any more of that. But let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. In the description, I have links on my social media accounts. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can message me there to let me know if there's any movies, news, or reviews you would like me to cover in the future. And of course, with all that in mind, guys, I will see you in the next video.